be careful about, to be aware of that. Often couple members blame each other. That's what I have seen, and also that's what the research indicates to us. And then before that, we talked about how the couple system may be embedded or rooted in multiple systems. They may be working, they may be connected with their family of origin, they may be impacted by the sociocultural reality. So again, always we have to pay attention to all these multi-systems they are part of. So when we do any kind of work. And it's part of the family therapy, that's the tradition I come from. We always say, people invite you into their relational system as a therapist or a counselor, whatever. When they invite you, you may have a lot of experience and knowledge and training and all this stuff. Do not jump into, when you see the problems, do not jump into solutions to that, because you don't know the system yet. You have to get to know the system enough. At least in the US, we talk about at least three sessions. Definitely, those are called assessment sessions. Intake and assessment is part of that. So get to know the system well, and then you can collaboratively, in a postmodern way, most often, collaboratively work together. And there's a new trend coming up. It's called evidence-based practices, which are also paying attention to all these multi-systemic impact, family of origin, community, society, all those factors. So those are some of the things. And I said I will start with some questions first, and then I'll also say I would talk about mate selection processes, because so if you have any question from yesterday, please ask me now. We have just a few minutes for questions from yesterday. No questions from yesterday? All right, okay. Great. Okay. Of course, if you have question, I'll pause every 20 minutes, and then we can take more questions and see how it goes. Okay, Miss Jennifer, could you take me to 1.4, please?
Yes, sir, sure.
Thank you. So again, this is spillover from yesterday. I just want to do it quickly and then. Okay, great. Okay, so get started with the first one. The beginning slide. The beginning slide. No, okay, going back. Okay, so start with the title itself. I just want to quickly say something. Yeah. Okay. So mate selection is a kind of very complex process. Complex process in the sense that people go through a lot of iterations, a lot of deliberations. Sometimes it may feel like in Indian context or other cultural contexts that families come together. They also do a lot of thinking processes. So mate selection can be done by an individual who's getting into the relationship, or by the family or the resources of, or the network of the person that part of, like families and extended families get together and then do that kind of mate selection. They use specific criteria. So during this one, I want to talk about how is that process often understood. And I'm going to use two different theoretical frameworks to understand it. So just to show the complexity in a way. So Jennifer, next one. So mate selection process are usually influenced by multiple factors. There could be a cultural factor. Cultural factor in the sense, like, sometimes people marry from their own cultural background. Cultural background could also mean religious background. So people marry from the real tradition. We're all familiar with that. So, and there are social norms. Social norms could be socioeconomic status. Say, for example, one of the high income group would marry from within high income group often, or low income group may aspire to get into high income group. So again, there are social norms. In certain cases, what happens is these social norms are violated. One of the huge shocks I had when I came to the U.S. many years ago was that I had to go to a doctor I had to go to a hospital, and then for an emergency reason, and then one of the emergency doctor came to me, and she was a very personable young lady. Yeah, yeah, young. I'm sorry. Bye. Okay, bye bye. Close the door. That's my little one coming to say hi to me. Okay. No, Abby, bye. Okay, sorry. Sorry about that. That's one of the challenges of working from home. So this lady said, she talked. I was a new guy at that time, and then she wanted to know whoever. So she talked to me about her husband, and I found out that her husband was a truck driver, a doctor, emergency physician, or marrying a truck driver. That's a big social. But in the U.S., it was not an issue at all. But again, for me, it was shock in a way. Wow, how is it possible? So the social norms, sometimes people violate that. There are family expectations, family of origin experience. Like families get into this, they have their own opinion. Even in the U.S., a daughter brings her boyfriend to the family for dinner, and there's a lot of grilling questions and interviews and stuff like that goes, and vice versa too. So family get involved in the process, but they don't have a lot of say in the U.S. weddings. But in India, it's still the case, I'm assuming. And there are personal experiences. People choose their partner based on their personal experiences. They have certain assumptions about it. And that's where some of the theories that I'm going to talk about will share. Or spiritual orientation. People marry people from their same spiritual tradition and other factors. Can you think of any other factors also be part of this? Culture, social norms, expectations, personal choices, spiritual orientation. So you can, probably you will come up with some. Okay, next, please. Jen? Hello? Okay, great. So there are two, I'm going to talk very briefly about two theoretical frameworks to explain what the how to explain the partner selection processes. Some of you may be familiar with this. It's called stage theory of mate selection. It's an old theory, 1970s. And also the second one is called social exchange models of relationship development. So both these theories are very interesting theories which talk about how people get into that conclusion of the mate, which partner I should choose. So think about your own kind of things. Okay. Yeah, the next one. Okay. Is it moving? Jennifer, next one. Yes, this one, right. Yes, thank you very much. And according to stage theory, I want to just go quickly about it, because and also I'd like you to think about it. So stage theorists talk about 6 successive stages in relationship. And the one is attraction. Attraction is not just physical attraction. Attraction could be based on similarities, could be spiritual thing, or emotional the resources the person has. He's a good listener, or he knows how to listen to me and empowers me. He knows how to listen to me and how to empower me. So again, attraction could be all kinds of places. So people usually in the courting stage, when they begin to date each other, they begin to look into this. Then they begin to establish a rapport, like connecting with the other person. I can speak without any intimidation. I can speak, or actually he can speak to me, or she can listen to me. All those kind of things. Then the third stage, we call it mutual and selective self-disclosure. So I won't say everything about myself. I will only say things that I choose to say. So what a great guy I am, or what a great gal I am. Those kind of things, very selectively. And they do it in the same way. They mutually and very selectively self-disclose. I think about your own experience when you began to date, or if you're in a relationship at all, in a dating relationship. Those are really, even in, like their own. They go to this place, they share about themselves, their profile, and all those wonderful things that they do. And in the course of time, they may slowly begin to disclose other factors also. Then the fourth one is empathic understanding. Again, they can connect with each other with a lot of empathy, a lot of understanding, and all those things. Again, they kind of go around these. They test the empathy. Is that person empathic enough? Those kind of testing will go on. The testing out, then the fifth one we talk about is testing out role compatibility. That's a very critical piece. In the course of time, they begin to really test in the sense that, do I matter in this relationship? Does he really care for me, or does she really care for me? Or her other job is more important than me, or her family of origin is more important than or her friends. So again, they test out the role compatibility in many ways. And then the sixth stage is they really either they get disillusioned that this is not for me, or they commit themselves to the relationship. So one of the things about it could happen in many ways. It doesn't happen in this kind of successive way always. They may be attracted first, and then they begin to, kind of, I want to marry right away. So I had a friend of mine, I don't know whether I told you, she went to Ireland, and she met this guy that is her first trip to Dublin, Ireland, and met this guy in a bar, and then she decided to get married to him within the same week itself. Came back home and said, Seb, this is what it is. This is an American girl who grew up here in a psychology program at that time. So people just skip some steps and move right into it. So attraction, rapport, hot sex, or a couple of nights of being together, and then this is it for me. Then commitment to that, and that gets into a lot of. Even after marriage, people go through this also. So again, always remember there are different steps. So can you think of kind of your own? You don't have to say it here. What kind of steps did you go through, or stage did you go through when you made that commitment to the person? Again, it is more US or Eurocentric, not necessarily Indian context, but again, this may be relevant in the current generation. So kind of keep thinking about that. I use this definitely during my couple therapy sessions. I want to know how they met, how they came to the conclusion of this is the person for me. What sort of, if they remember, how was that process for them? Often when I invite them to that early times of connecting, their affect changes. They begin to smile most often, and they get into that kind of mindset of remembering all those fond memories. So I use it just kind of in the couple therapy sessions. Next one, Jen. You can take the social exchange theory. Next one. Yes, social exchange theories. Again, this is a kind of older theory, but I think it is extremely important in order to understand how people stay in abusive relationships. Like sometimes people may be staying in relationships. Sometimes people get into certain relationships. So this kind of social exchange theory, it's coming from a business background, but at the same time, it has a lot of implications for our clinical practice. So according to this theory, there are about some fundamental 6 assumptions. Like one is, human beings always seek rewards. I want to experience something. Maybe I want to feel good, or I want to have the material resources or spiritual resources. I want to get something out of relationship. That's always the case. So think about the relationship people go through. So people always look for rewards, and they also avoid punishment. If the relationship is going to be this person is going to be very difficult for me to deal with, or he, people figure it out in the course of their life whether this is a person I can be with or not. So they try to maximize the rewards, or they try to seek rewards and avoid punishments. The second assumption is, when interacting with others, human beings, all of us, try to maximize profits for themselves and minimizing costs. So again, as we begin to date, we realize that, hey, this is a good catch for me. I feel good about it. I feel secure in this relationship. But maybe sometimes I'm kind of concerned about that person's way of emotional regulation. Maybe some idiosyncrasies or some kind of troublesome areas we begin to notice. So again, we try to, kind of see whether can I really settle down with this person. So if it gives me the sense that I can maximize from this relationship and minimize cost. Cost means I don't have to deal with this drama all the time, or whatever the cost the person experiences. So then they will begin to think about it themselves. Third one is, as rational beings, we are thinking beings, we calculate rewards, we calculate cost. We also consider alternatives before acting on decisions. Sometimes people date a couple of people at the same time in different stages of their development. Just like you look for a job, and then you're looking, one company is offering you a good, and then you're also continuing to kind of interview for the other companies. So the same kind of process happens even in relationships. People may be dating different people. I'm reminded of a case that I had. He was about 70 years old, older man, 70 years old. I'm not saying that it's a very, very old age. So he lost his wife. She died. So he became a widower. So that was time, many in the 90s, late 90s. He was getting into social networking and all. He was dating 3 or 4 people at the same time. And then he would spend weekends with them. And the problem was he would mix up their names. Hey, Kathy. No, I'm not Kathy, I'm Lily. Those kind of things. So kind of mess up the details. So that kind of creates a lot of stuff. So people always look for different alternatives and what is best for me. And finally they said, the fourth one is, fourth one. When faced with no desirable alternative, humans will choose the least costly alternative, right? So say I am, I'm dating somebody, and she is very well educated, and I'm dating another person. She's also very well educated, but she comes from a lot of resources, family, wealth, and all those things. And then the third person. So again, I'm always calculating. I may not actively date these people again, but I'm in some sort of relationship with those people. So I will always do that. Or then the fourth one is whatever it is again. So whatever is least costly, which means in this case, second one, it is so I have educated women and then also a person with wealth. The other person has education. Not so much of wealth. So again, it is kind of maybe a little costly. I have to work on those resourcefulness. So people may choose that. This is very true even in the case of marriages also. Sometimes people stay in abusive relationships, right? When faced with, so they said, okay, I'm married to this person. I have heart on a cart, they call it. Like I have a bed to sleep, a roof to be under, food on the table. I don't have to work too much. I may have to put up with his abuse sometimes, or his all those things. Then I may choose that if I get out, suppose I get out of this relationship, I'll be on the street. I may have to look for a new job. I may be ostracized by my community. I'm talking about people who are staying in abusive marriage relationships. So I will calculate all that stuff. Then I'll say, well, I will suck it up. I will put up with it. How many more years? We have only 20 more years left. So I will just put up and we'll kind of stay in that abusive relationship. Interesting part is it's all a perception, right? So in the meantime, the family and the friends would say, well, you are so smart, you are so good with all this, and you have resources. Even if you get out of these relationships, you can still make it great in life. But the person doesn't believe it though. Those kind of, again, this all those self-perception. And the fifth one is the standards that humans use to evaluate rewards and costs differ from person to person and vary over the course of time. What it means is basically is that for some persons, some people, socioeconomics may be a huge factor to consider before they get into a relationship. For some people, socioeconomics don't matter. For me, peace of mind. This person loves me, connects with me, or I feel safe with him or her. So those kind of the criteria that we use to evaluate rewards and costs differ from person to person, and also most importantly, these will shift in the course of time, right? What attracted me to my wife or my husband at this point in 2020. May undergo change. It doesn't stay the same, right? There is a dynamics going on. And so what I consider to be a great thing, 10 years later, I may not consider it as great anymore. So for example, when I ask my clients that, what attracted you to John, for example? oh, John was assertive, John was master of things, and when he goes into this place, he was confident, he could speak his mind up. That attracted me because I come from a family, we didn't have any of those things. But now you live with John for 10 years and John is still assertive. That is what attracted me 10 years before becomes an irksome thing. It irritates me, it annoys me now. John, you are, because in other words, the reward that I thought would be great is kind of changes in the course of time. I cannot stand John now. When he opens his mouth, I just want to run from there. I have nothing to do with it. I mean, sometimes people who talk about these kind of experience. So the point is the rewards and cost kind of shift. Sometimes people say, oh, although my family forced me into this marriage, and that now I didn't see much of value. I thought it was pretty costly for me. In some way, it was a lot of I had to put up with. But now I'm realizing, hey, that was a great thing that happened to me. I'm discovering these resources within the person. So a couple members will begin to kind of discover within themselves many resources. The last one is, in the course of time, the value of the reward diminishes unless more incentives added to keep it enticing and appealing. So that is true for any relationship, right? So you are so excited. I mean, I'm so excited to get married to my wife. We go, and in the course of time, we have to, the reward value gets diminished. So we have to keep new incentives. We have to enrich marriage in different ways. So many of the marriage enhancement programs are focused on those kind of factors. So we're talking about different things. Jen, can you put it forward a couple more and then we'll end this one. So social exchanges are usually characterized by interdependence. Both parties are doing this evaluation, both the husband or the wife or the spouses are always doing it. The emergent experience of relationship guided subsequent. So each, like for example, 2020, my wife and I, whatever we go through today will inform us for tomorrow. So again, so there's a dynamic process going on in this evaluation and calculation, all these things. Social exchanges are regulated by norms of reciprocity and fairness. There's always that component, reciprocity, how they give it to each other, how they receive from each other, and fairness. If one person does more than the other, in an ongoing way, that can create imbalance in the system. So a bunch of things like that. There are more to say, but again, I'm going to end it here for now. So for this particular segment, is there any? There's some examples of the rewards. Physical attractiveness, social acceptance and approval. Oh, that kind of reminds me of that. So one guy, I was in a couple therapy, he was talking about, it was an African American couple that I was seeing. She was a beautiful woman and he was okay. So I asked him, during the kind of sessions, like, what really brought you together? He said, Seb, I had no confidence in myself. People would not even look at me when I walked by myself. But when I walked with her, when I began to date her, when she came into my life, I began to be somebody, In other words, people, I began, oh, he must be pretty smart. People kind of began to assume, because how did she get that great girl? How that great person? Again, sometimes social acceptance and approval, in order to do that, people do that stuff. So, provision of favor. There are a bunch of factors we can talk about. Things. Again, I want to end it here. And there are more to say, but again, I want to stop here for questions. So I'm asking you, inviting you to think about the mate selection process. Think about your own personal processes. How was the process? Was it quick, or what kind of criteria? You don't have to share it with the group now. Just think about it at least. What kind of processes, what kind of criteria did you use? All those 6 stages that stage theory talked about, or the reward and punishment kind of, that kind of cost benefit kind of evaluation or analysis that went through. How much of the cultural factors were part of that choice? Well, you think about yourself, also think about your clients or patients. Ask them, how did they come together? Because sometimes people may come together based on whatever happened. She was pregnant, and she had to save the face of the family, and then she got into the relationship, or he was trapped in a relationship, he says. I didn't want to have, it was just a casual sex or something, and now the whole family, especially Italian families, are kind of funny in some cases. They come at, I cannot make general statements, but sometimes families come together. If you don't marry, buddy, you are going down the bridge, like, or cement shoes on you, and they'll drop you from the bridge, and you'll never see the light of the day. So sometimes people get into a relationship because of the pressure from other factors. So my question is, think about what factors from your own clinical experience, propel people to get into these relationships often. What are the factors? I shared some.
Dr. Seth?
Yay, Dr. Yan. Yeah, my friend. Hello. Go for it. Yes.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is my story, and please let me know which theory it falls into.
Okay.
That, before I knew Jane, my church pastor, he said that he has arranged one lady for me.
Yeah.
And then before I knew her name or her face or before any interaction, I already decided to marry her. Yeah, because I
before you even saw. Yeah, before you even saw her. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know even her name, but I trusted my church pastor because he fears God and he loves me, and he is also much wiser than I am. So I decided. So I didn't go through these 6 stages. Yeah. So which theory it falls into, and then the marriage was so successful that I'm still enjoying my honeymoon. So
yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. After 26 years, right? Yeah, great. So he's a friend of mine, so I know that part. So anyway, I just revealed your age by that. Sorry about that, buddy.
No problem. Yeah.
Okay. So which theory? Again, what do you think? Which theory? Again, for me, I'm thinking about a couple of things. Definitely, you're living your marriage from what I heard from you, what I know from your experiences. Because you're still enriching your relationship with each other, with Jane, and you are going in that. So probably it may not be social exchange per se, but again, there is some kind of things going on, and also your faith factors could be a factor of that. And faith factors seems to be the first one for me. It could be part of the cultural fact, not necessarily culture. But again, we cannot pigeonhole it into that particular category. But again, you trusted the discernment of the pastor, because he's wise, much wiser than you said, and also your faith. All those factors may have contributed to that. I think, again, the point is, you're raising a very important point. Sometimes some theories cannot capture the complexity of this process of mate selection, right? So you may be an outlier in some ways. So there are other factors going on: your faith factor, and then your trust in this person who can make that, even without knowing her name and face, that you chose that. So again, this may not be completely explained by both of these theories, but there are some parts can be, I guess.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Thanks. So I think Dr. Yan also bring a good point that there are certain theories. So any theories are human constructs, right? Sometimes theories, although they are complex and wonderful, it doesn't really capture the complexity level of human processes, human thinking. Always keep that in mind. I think that's one good factor. Thank you, Dr. Yan. Okay. What about others? Any other thoughts before?
Hello.
Yeah.
What I wanted to say was that when we are looking at mate selection in Indian context, what happens is that the mate is selected for us, and the steps that you said happens after the marriage. And yes, the attraction and the establishment of rapport happens after the marriage. And then when we reach the disillusionment or commitment phase, that is where it's a problem occurs. After that, people tend to stay in the marriage still, because in India the social cultural norms force people to stay, and there are other factors also, because here still divorce is not an accepted thing, especially in rural areas. So mate selection is more about force here, I feel. It's like then you cannot get out of the marriage. So the patients who come to us, when we ask about what about your mate selection, how did you, the only thing they say is we went to as you said, dated many people. We went to see many people. We went for tea to many houses. We drank many teas and then decided,
that's, tea is still important, right? Tea is,
yes.
Divya, thank you so much. Yeah, sorry, please continue. Please finish.
Fine. That is what I wanted to say. In Indian context, this mate selection, when we ask about, it's they don't even recall how it happened. They will again say this, somebody selected for us, or we went and we talked to that person and that's done.
Yeah. So I think that's a great point in the sense that mate selection happens in stages, but again, not by the individual who's choosing the mate, but the family or the influential people in the family does that process. They go through all this. Is that person attractive? Is that person has the resources? And is that, then they establish rapport with the family of the person that you'd be getting. So mate selection happens not at the individual level, but at the collective or a family level it happens. But still, the process is there. And you're right, Divya. But once trapped in the system, then the individual, after the fact, after the marriage, then they begin to go through that phase. And because of that, as you said, you brought some interesting points in terms of social norms and all those things. So if a person is stuck in the relationship, realizing that, oh wow, now I'm trapped. My family chose for me, but they left me. Now I'm stuck with this. Now, do I stay in this? If I stay in this, I'll be ostracized, alienated, kind of hated by my family. All those all the factors come in. So those are the cost. Because of the cost, people stay within relationships. Then they may develop special relationship outside affairs. May not always the case, but again, there are all kinds of complexities happen. But Divya, don't you also think today's generation, today's the kids of today, the 20s and more educated, I think India also seems to be changing, right? Because there's a lot of negotiation. Although family may still be involved in the mate selection process, but the girl or the boy, they can negotiate with their family. There's kind of some sort of lobbying going on in the families. Dad, I don't want this person because of XYZ. Or if I don't have the guts to say that to my dad, I could go to my mom or to my sister or brother. So this is a sort of lobbying goes on today, right? Don't you think so? So people can make their cases in some cases. Some cases, you're right. In some cases,
now it's happening.
Yeah.
I think
okay. Can I add in?
Sure, Deepa. Yes, go for it, Deepa.
As I look into two theories, I understand that maybe the stage theory would we could relate it to more when it is a love marriage, when they are into a committed relationship for a long time, and probably this attraction and establishing rapport phase may be going ahead. And in the arrangement, I think it's more of the social exchange theory, as Divya rightly pointed out, that the family is involved, and then we look into, the certain aspects which we could compromise probably on that lines. My understanding goes this way, sir.
Yeah. So absolutely, I totally agree with you, Divya and Deepa. You're right. Again, these are the US or Eurocentric theories, but I'm saying sometimes some of these theories may make some sense in our own clinical context. And I've seen with the new generation, more westernized kind of people, kids like in college, they choose their own partners. Like recently, my niece, she brought her own choice to her father. The father said, no. But again, she said, no, Dad, if I'm not getting it, I'm leaving. That's it. That kind of, they have such a kind of courage to speak their mind up. So kind of it happens, changes in the new. You're right, but still there are other factors in Indian context. May not completely go. Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
In the Indian context, also the horoscope makes a lot of difference.
Yes,
thank you. They see the horoscope before they go and see the boy and girl. That becomes a very important factor in many of the cultures.
Yeah, true.
And they do lay down that, okay, he should have a house, he should be financially good, he should be this. So there are certain norms which are put down by the girl as well as the boy. So this is one becomes a very important factor in the Indian culture.
You're right. And the Indian culture is kind of spreading around. I think even in the US, people are beginning to look into some sort of not so much about, they look into zodiacs and the compatibility, zodiac compatibility and all those things. So that's another Hindu, that thank you for talking about that particular criteria people use in certain religions, especially, right? And not in every religion, but again, in certain religions, they use that.
Yes, that is true.
Matching the horoscope and all.
Yeah.
Sometimes, in movies and all, it's reflected. If the horoscope, if it doesn't match, they bribe the guy and then they will make it right in some way. I mean, those are jokes, but still, I think there could be some. I'm not trashing horoscope.
No, there are some truth in that. Even if they're showing it in the movie, I think there is a 0.1% truth in it.
Some kernel of truth in it, yeah. Okay, yeah. Right. But it's very important for people to think about how they, and the families. That's why in many of the faith-based organizations, they used to give engaged encounter for the couples. Let's do the couple. But again, now there's a trend. Let's educate parents about how to get into this process, how not to be in the way of the members' selection of their partners. Those are a lot of changes that are happening in Indian context. Also, family education, all those things, educating the family member and educating them to respect people's freedom within. It may not be in a big way, but again, it's happening slowly. Any other last thought before we move to exciting topic of today? Just kidding. Infidelity. Yay. Okay, sorry. So any other last thought before we move into the next one?
Sir, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, good evening, sir. My name is Millie.
Hi, Millie Paul. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, okay. Hi, sir. I just wanted to know, you said somewhere that, people tend to stay in abusive relationship, for whatever reasons, like financial or any other reasons. But I'm just asking, could there also be an element of unconditionality? It may not be, with everyone, but you kind of manage to stay with a suspicious husband. If the other person is unconditionally enough to accept the positive side of the husband, how does that work in your experience? If you can throw some light.
So thank you, Millie. So can you say a little more about that unconditionality? Are you talking about unconditional kind of acceptance of the person, or are you talking about something different? Unconditional.
Yeah, it's unconditional love, like
okay.
Unconditional acceptance, like accepting the person as he or she is, rather than you molding the person according to your wish.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're talking about an abusive situation, abusive in the sense that personally, emotionally, or not. I hope it is not physical in that case. But again, the person still puts up with it, tolerates it. Maybe he may change someday. Though, yeah, people believe that absolutely. But again, often in the common or a mainstream community, people may justify it in some ways or find reasons. Oh, God wants me to be in this relationship. God gives me grace or patience. All those people may justify, people may rationalize in certain ways. That could be true. But at the same time, if I'm a clinician, if I am working with that person, I would try to go beneath that, because sometimes there are pseudo rationalizations, pseudo kind of, even person may be believing that this is what it is. But at the same time, if you begin to do the work with them, with that person, trying to identify what the barriers, what are the fears, the family of origin experiences, or why there's so much of fear in this case. Why, those can really, those kind of queries or kind of questioning or curiosity can shed light, and the person may come out of that shell. Because often people may say, oh, I want to stay in this relationship because XYZ, because I've said yes to God, and in good times, bad times, all those kind of promises that we make. But if you really get deeper, stay with that person in a way, clinically relevant way, that position may shift. And I have seen it happening, especially when you work with from the spiritual backgrounds, like they have certain notions about what that ultimate unconditional commitment means. Those kind of notions may shift, I would say. But again, in some cases it may not even. So you're right. You're raising a great point, Millie. The question is, how deep can that person go to find out, why am I staying in this relationship? Or is it just kind of notion that I should be connected with the person for the rest of their life? because of the vow that I have made. So there are many reasons, I'm sure. So stay clinically with that person. Don't just take it at the face value when the person says that I'm unconditional. I would say go deeper, go deeper, go deeper, and then you will find, because sometimes it may be a matter of courage. Sometimes a matter of other barriers or cost I talked about, getting out. Those fears may be in the way. So again, we can only speculate, but let the person say that, I would say. They change their position, I would say. You're welcome, of course. That's a great question. Absolutely. Great questions.
Excuse me. There could be also reasons that the wife is staying with the spouse because of financial reasons, or because in the Indian culture I'm talking about, could be the financial conditions or the children. Or it also could be that she is able to control him in some way.
Yeah.
I mean,
so there may be there is a stake in the game, right? Like in the sense that yes, I can still control him, or my kids' future. They are still little ones, and if I leave, they'll be going through a lot of crisis, which is true in many cases. They do go through, especially in the short term, for sure. Kids go through crisis. So again, those factors, there are a bunch of factors. So they're always calculating what is more costly for me to stay. So one of my friends, it's a very close friend of mine. She's a professor with me. And then the last child is getting out. They have 2 kids, and one of them is going. She's about 50. She just turned 50. And then she's seriously thinking about divorce. Seriously talking about that. And so Dana, she's working with a therapist. So these factors, the reason why she stayed in the relationship was because of the kids. She didn't want anything to happen to the kids. Kids were little when they had trouble. And now the kids are in college. The last one launched out into the college life. So she says, well, this is time for me. I put my life on hold for the sake of the children, but still I cannot live with this reality. I cannot live with this person for the next 20 years of my life. So I'm deciding to go otherwise. And so again, people make those kind of decisions. People put their life on hold because of other factors, as you mentioned. So I think as a clinician, we have to know all these things. That is our job, right? They are hiring us into the system. We have to help them think about it. Sometimes they may make statements, but if you think that statement is not valid enough, at least you may sense it, may not challenge it at that point, go back again at some point, maybe in the next session, the few sessions. Because there is always, don't give up. If there is an issue, really, you think that, because you get a clinical sense. This makes sense. This doesn't fit well. She says she loves him. At the same time, these are XYZ factors don't add up. So as a clinician, you're always inquiring and always respectfully curious about why this continue, what it reinforces the system in spite of the abusive patterns. I hope it makes sense. Does it? Okay, so let's probably we may come back to that again. Again, this I would say talk about mate selection processes. All those points, Divya's point and Deepa's point, and all those absolutely valid ones, situate in the cultural context of India or the context in which you are, and then try to make sense. And the horoscopes and all those things are factors. Yes. Okay, so Jen, can you take me to the second 2.1, please?
Yes, sir. Here we are.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So now I'm going to start talking about some of the hot topics in the field of couple therapy. Today I'm hoping to finish 2 at least, and then I'll take the other 2 tomorrow and day after the main presentations are over. So the reason I wanted to talk about these issues, at least 4 issues, there are several issues. 4 issues is this is one of the 3rd leading cause of divorce, or couple challenges, and infidelity in committed relationship. And I was reading an article yesterday in Times of India, article which came out in February. They were talking about in India about 50. That's the Times of India article. 51%. Some of you may have seen it. 51% of women, especially in the industrial sectors, are involved with affairs, and they talk about that experience. And in a funny way, only 40% of men confessed to infidelity. I'm sure there is much more than that for sure. So in India, it's happening. And there was another study done in 1990s that during the IT boom, towards the end of 1990s, numbers were kind of slightly low, 25 and 23, I think I remember that. So that's kind of an interesting reality. So infidelity is one of the topics of relation. Now, infidelity is such a misleading term. That's the reason I want to talk about it, because there's a lot of common norms, common understanding. Infidelity is one thing, most of the people understand it. But what is it clinically? How do we experience the construct or the concept of infidelity in the couple relationship? That's what I want to talk about in the next few. So infidelity in the committed relationship. Thank you. Jen, can you move to the next one, please? Infidelity basically means no, the previous one, Jen, sorry. Yeah, infidelity basically means breaking of trust. It represents a significant injury to the trust process. I trusted this person. I started my journey together with this person. But now I'm finding out is that I don't really matter in this relationship. There is some other stuff going on. And that's kind of a huge blow to the trust. In most of the cases, I have dealt with many cases of infidelity in my clinical practice, and one of the huge one was kind of a trust factor. It's not about the sex, which I don't care, they say, but again, he violated my trust, and I cannot trust him anymore. And so it was a big when I was in a city, Seattle City, it was kind of big people there. Two very known people, well-known people. They came for therapy at 8 o'clock at night when the clinic was closed, because they didn't want anybody to watch them, because they were moving into another state in the next few months. So they had to set it up. So again, infidelity is such a significant injury to the trust factor. So defining infidelity is kind of a huge challenge for clinicians. So we cannot just assume. That's why I said yesterday, when clients bring a topic, infidelity is one, kind of lock on it and try to solve the problem right away. No, there are nuances and complexities and what exactly it means for the couple in a postmodern way, in a co-constructive way. We have to find out what are the implications, what are the nuances, what are the different layers involved in it. We have to understand. So next slide, please, Jen. Okay, so it's one of the interesting articles that I've found. Qualitative studies, basically, they shed a lot of light on that one. I've done a lot of work with this infidelity issue. So they think of infidelity in 3 different ways. They define it 3 types of infidelity. I would add a 4th one too, which from my own clinical experience. The first one is infidelity as sexual intercourse. This person is having a sexual intercourse. I had sexual intercourse with somebody from outside. Broke that sacredness of the relationship. That's a common thing in the movies and all those places. That's what we see often. So infidelity primarily is a sexual intercourse, and that's how they see it. So you need to understand what the client is meaning by infidelity when they use the word. The second one is infidelity as extradyadic sexual activities. There is no vaginal penile penetration there. We are not talking about penetrating sex there. We're talking about something around it, like, for example, friends or co-workers or acquaintance, or those kind of things, masturbating in the presence of another. They didn't have a vaginal penile intercourse. Performing oral sex. Sometimes people believe that performing oral sex is not infidelity, because I'm not having sex in the sense that it is commonly as in the way it's first one. Or engaging in sexual play. Again, another interesting part. Or visiting strip clubs. Go to this place, and then there are many strip clubs in the United States. Every place there is a kind of around 7 o'clock, the whole place opens up. We see a lot of trucks, people, just they're finding pleasure in seeing. It's got more visualization. Naked women are dancing, those kind of things. Strip clubs, or watching pornography. That's another. Although I'm not having sex with the third person outside, but I'm watching pornography. It has a lot of problems in itself. I'll talk about it in the next section, addiction section. or having sexual fantasies about a person other than my partner. So this woman would say, I'm having sex with my husband, but I don't really connected with her. Again, I'm thinking about my coworker when I'm having sex with her. Or vice versa. He says, I cannot stand her, but again, but I have to do this as a duty, but I'm thinking about Debbie or whoever, Lily or so out there. So thinking about another person. Cyber sex, that's again a huge thing. That's a new, with the advent of this technological revolution, information. There's again lots of people have access to cyber sex in their private rooms. They may go to their basement, or they may go to their office space. In office space, they cannot do that because they'll be fired from, especially in the U.S. So cyber sex is kind of things. Exchanging sexual images of each other. Co-workers, when I was in Bangalore last year, and I used to see a couple of people there, for therapeutic reasons, and they kind of talked about those they share their sexual images, their body parts to each other, kind of engage with each other. They don't have any direct sexual intercourse or online dating. Online, while you're still married to somebody else, you're having a dating, online flirting, philanthropy, kind of flirtatious kind of behavior, or using online pornography. Online pornography is a huge factor. In some cases, in my work with couples in the United States, they say we use pornography to get aroused, to just get into this kind of relationship, kind of to get into the mood. They say that, but those may be useful in the beginning, but again, it is dangerous also in the course of time. And I'll tell you why, because the virtual reality takes over. Virtual reality of this person that I'm seeing on the screen is much more enticing and appealing. It gratifies my mind more than the real person with her smell or with his body odor and all those kind of things. Again, so the virtual takes over the real. So again, I will talk about it in the next section, hopefully. So again, the infidelity is understood as, I'm not having a sexual intercourse, but again, extra-dyadic sexual activities in these kind of lists. And the third is much more common, and I think it's more accepted in the progressive circles, they say. Extra-dyadic emotional, it's a non-sexual, emotional bond, deep emotional attachment with that person, coworker, or who I spend time with. I can tell you several cases that I have dealt with in this case. This is increasing. I think I mentioned about work wife or work husband. There is a relationship that's going on. A lot of intimacy, not in a sexual way, but again, a lot of emotional connection. They fall in love with each other in that sense. I can tell you several cases that I have dealt with. An investment of romantic love, my time, my attention, my care, my gift giving and all in a person other than my primary partner, right? It's kind of, this person has a special accounts for the person, special phone connections to connect with that person, secretive kind of stuff, and then invest more time and with that person than my own committed partner. So again, there are different kinds. And I would say there's the infidelity as a financial reality. Again, getting engaged with, again, I don't want to go there to that finance. That's a new phenomenon that we're seeing. Infidelity even also can be described from that financial engagement that is happening in terms of without checking with a partner, with a wife, getting into all these kind of, adventures like, stalking and stock exchange, all those kind of stuff. So there are many factors. So the point is, infidelity is not a very simple construct. It's extremely complex. It is layered, and its meaning is different for different people. Partner may understand it different. I have people said, I don't care, that the first part, he have sex with somebody. I don't care about that piece. But at the same time, the point is, the other factors are more his emotional connection with that person. That's kind of shit that scares me the most. Those kind of things. Any thoughts about any of them? Let me just hold on a second. Yeah. My kids sometimes are curious. They want to see what daddy's doing in the morning. We are getting ready for breakfast. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So any thoughts about this?
Hi. I was thinking, yeah. I read up somewhere which meant like if wives or if the female partners indulge in sexual activities with other males, it affects the husband more, and if husband indulge in emotional activities with other females, it affects the wives more. Is it so?
Yeah. Absolutely, yes, 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 yes. So the physical engagement is troubling for one, not the other. The emotional engagement is more serious. Again, oh yeah, all kinds of variations. So that's why, as couple therapists, we need to really know in what way is each member in the couple system is impacted. You will get some interesting kind of responses from that. Yeah, it does happen, of course, Isha. Yes.
My question was, is it that rigid or it can vary?
Oh, yeah, it depends on the person, right? And that is true for anything, right? So people could fluctuate, and I'll talk about that, in the next few slides about how that cycle happens. Sometimes the person is shocked. Oh, how dare you could do that? How could you do that physically? And so, oh, I get it. After a couple of days, I get it because you're gonna. But still, I could not understand what kind of mindset did you have to go to that? So again, they fluctuate, they vary from all those places. So those are part of the healing process I'll talk about in the next few sessions, next few slides. Yes. Thanks, Isha. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure. Yeah. Aisha, yeah.
Infidelity would also be violation of the boundaries, right, in the relationship. So
Sure.
when you talk about emotional infidelity, say there's a couple wherein the wife doesn't agree with the man sharing their private life on social media, and
Yeah.
she sees it as a breach of her trust and
Yeah.
abuse in their relationship, whereas for him, he sees it
It
as
was not
her infringing on his boundaries, and his
right.
space. So how do you
Yeah.
reconcile those differences?
Yeah.
Because each of them looks at it,
Correct. That's why, again, you're talking about two different realities, right?
Yeah,
Experienced by each member in the couple
yeah,
system. So how do we deal with that? So first of all, they have to be heard, right? Again, in the context of the couple therapy, in a safe context, they have to, what it means for them. I'll talk about that. What is the meaning of that? Where it is the boundary violation. He says, I have the freedom to share with my friends what I want to.
yeah,
You cannot control what emotion, you cannot put emotional boundaries around me. So
exactly.
again, those are the conversations. So again, they may have a kind of history about that. So so again, bring these people to table. Our job as therapists is to bring people to give them an opportunity to articulate what they could not articulate or what they cannot articulate in their own private spaces. So bringing that and then processing it, helping each other understand the nuances, how it impacts the other person, that may bring some sort of, so clarifying how it
Yeah,
impacts the other person. That kind of is part of the couple therapy for us. We have to do that. We have to create, because they cannot do it. They don't have the capacity to come together and talk about it. They will escalate in all kind of ways and
exactly.
get
Yeah.
into trouble. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's a great question, Aisha. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Hello,
Yeah.
Sebastian. Sarah here.
Sure. Yeah, Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi. Open marriages are trending today, and I think I had a case where this child, was quite disturbed when we were taking up a class on marriage and what are the basic foundations of marriage and all that, and then he just got up saying that my parents are in an open marriage and why are you all talking only about marriages. So I did see that his parents being in an open marriage did affect him in some way, because he wanted the society to accept open marriage. So do you think that infidelity could be one of the reasons why somewhere couples get into an open marriage somewhere down the line?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Sarah, that's a great point. Again, in the US, even in India also, I think it's beginning to polyamory marriage, and also swinging, we call it swapping, and all open marriages of people. And so again, there are different kinds of nuances within. So for example, polyamories, we find that they give freedom to each other to explore, to be open with other people, so emotional connections and sexual intercourse and all those things are important. But they put in some cases, that's kind of norm. In this case, maybe I'm assuming that this person grew up in that kind of, I don't know what sort of open marriage they had. Sometimes they restrict the partners within, they have a community of people. Again, it depends on, so as clinicians, we need to know what sort of open marriage is it, how they understood the open marriage in that case. And of course, his argument seems to be that, my parents, for that, I'm fine with that. In the same way, my future partner also should accept those kind of things. So there are variations within those kind of, so again, the polyamory and swinging or wife swapping or husband swapping are all those kind of very interesting realities. It brings, they may not talk about infidelity in these ways. They may talk about infidelity. I was working with a polyamorous couple. They said that I'm fine with her having sex with XYZ because we have a community there. But the problem is she goes sometimes out of the community. That's infidelity for me. Or they may have mutual understanding that you can have oral sex with each other, or there are kind of different, they have a kind of rubrics within the system itself. They have certain agreements. But if they digress from the agreement or violate the agreement, then that is infidelity. So again, I think we'll find all kinds of interesting combinations within this particular setting. That's why we cannot assume anything. Even the concept of open marriage, what does it mean for him? And in what way does he expect his future partner to understand him and accept him in that kind of, so we have to be clear about it, and she has to be clear too before she gets into those. So these are very important conversations. And I think in many of the marriage educational programs in the US, they begin to talk about it now. Professionals are doing those kind of marriage preparation programs. In India, I'm sure there are many marriage preparation programs. I don't know how much of that. My understanding was, when I looked at some of the curriculum, it's still at the communication level, those kind of problem-solving level. I mean, our society has moved much more complex and much more than. So I think those have to really update itself. Again, clinical professionals need to get into those kind of preparation programs. Great question, Sarah. I hope I answered. Yeah.
Dr. Sir?
Yeah, Madhura, yeah.
Yeah, so
yeah.
How I have been seeing this particular construct is it's more cultural and social construct and individual experiences right from their attachments and their upbringing, their experience in the immediate family.
I couldn't hear you, Madhura. I think you're soft. I couldn't hear you. Say the last part.
Their experiences in their immediate environment would also have a lot of impact on how they understand infidelity, because basically it's a breach of trust.
Yeah.
So what is exactly breaking of trust for me would be extremely different.
Yeah.
For someone else.
Exactly, right. I totally agree. That's why, although the couple we talk about as unit one system, there are two people with their own history, with their own upbringing, with their own socialization, with their own cultural and familial background. So all those diverse factors would come alive in some way. So again, people have to make sense within that kind of system. So that's why conversations are very, very important. That's why the therapist becomes a facilitator of such conversations. Facilitator, and other therapists plays different roles: facilitator, advocate, or supporter, or kind of those kind of things that we'll talk about in the next few days when you talk about different theories. Jen, can you bring me back to that PowerPoints? Jennifer, did I lose her? Okay, thank you, Jen. Okay, great. So I'm going to we'll take questions. Let me just, it sounds like it's a very interesting topic for people because of the relevance it has on couples. Let's see some more, and then we'll get into a deeper conversation. So in this, I don't know about the Indian numbers. I said about 51 and 40, but those are Times of India reported. I don't trust those numbers exactly, but again, in India too, there's again a little dated material. 20 to 25% of Americans report at least one extramarital sexual encounter during their lives. Again, basically saying that it's a reality. People, I think it is much more than that now in the 2020s. Protective factors. What protects people from getting into what protect people from not getting into infidelity? Conscientiousness, they say, spirituality, religiosity, or marital satisfaction. I think that is not completely true in the new, but I wanted to share with you this. There are some protective factors research literature talks about. Even people with marital satisfaction get into infidelity. I will come to that in a few seconds. Risk factors are narcissism, impulsivity, substance use disorders, sexual dissatisfaction in marital relationships. Again, there are some common risk factors, but this is not the whole picture yet. Next one, Jen, please. Jen? Okay, great. That's also, so we find some interesting factors. I'm in the process of doing a manuscript on this one. Positive correlation between higher socioeconomics and likelihood of infidelity. It kind of sounds strange in a way to say that people with a higher socioeconomic status and they have likelihood of infidelity. The mediating factor is high stress level in that life, especially in the business world and all those things. Or the entitlement. I'm entitled. Sometimes these political figures, big guns get into those kind of entitlement, and they also have more opportunities. So the high SES means high socioeconomic status, and the likelihood of infidelity means basically high stress level. So they soothe their stress by getting into these kind of infidel, like prostitutions or kind of special services and stuff like that. Or they're entitled. Our president is famous for that, right? President of the United States, now he talks about, we don't know, kind of the entitlement. He has that resource. I don't know about now as a president, but prior to that, that's all known to us. So people in that kind of positions, and they have more opportunities, right? There are vulnerable people come into their life for different reasons, and they kind of extraneous motivation I'll talk about later on, opportunity to do that. Involvement with coworkers. It's a very fascinating reality now. I want to do a research project on, if anybody is interested in that, with the Indian context, especially in the big cities like Bengaluru and Chennai and those places. There are high rate of, we know that from the clinical examples, clinical conversation with the clinicians, and also some confidential conversations. Nearly 1/2 of infidelity cases are involved with coworkers. 50%, more than 50%. Sexual opportunities in the workplace has doubled. There's a lot of connection there in that kind of places, and involvement with coworkers is a huge factor today. Next one, Jen, please. Opportunity. This kind of opportunity I get in the workplace can override, this is what I was going to talk about, positive aspects of satisfying marriage relationship. Even strong relationships with great marital satisfaction can experience infidelity if the right opportunities come along. This is happening, people, big time. The clinical realities again. So people say, we used to believe in the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, that if a person is married in a satisfying way, like marital satisfaction, there's an index, and there are instruments to measure all that stuff. But even those are not protection in the new cases. I'm talking about in certain sectors. So again, can you go back to that, please, the previous one, Jen? Yes. So even strong relationships can experience infidelity. So I think sometimes that is what happens in the clinical world, right? Clinician, wife or husband is shocked by the fact, I thought we had a great marriage. I thought we had a wonderful things going on. But then how did you do this, Tom? How did it? That's what happened to me, to the case that I was talking about when I was in Seattle, Washington. They came in the middle of the night, late night for sessions. How is it possible? We thought we got it all. We, shocked. Talking about opportunities, newer, because, today's work sector is such that it defies all sort of boundaries in some ways. It gives us access and opportunities to be out in the world, more time with those kind of people. And then as human beings, we are human beings, right? We are human beings. We get attracted to people around us, especially our proximity to them gets deeper and closer. Even among the colleagues, it happens. I have seen it happening often. Some of the cases that come to me as a clinician is mostly from the coworkers. Infidelity is related to coworkers, basically. Because the kind of sharing, the kind of involvement, not sexual always, is the second category that I talked about, that gets intensified. And then the second category becomes first category. So again, sexual activity becomes directed. So again, there are all kinds of, so even what I'm suggesting to you is, again, friends, I think when partners are shocked with this, with the context of marital satisfaction, don't be surprised by that, because again, the reason, look for the reasons, the proximity, the connection. The next one, Jen, please. And there are justifications. This is kind of information from the what do people say when they are caught? They are caught in infidelity, and then when you ask them from a clinical perspective, they justify it. They said, they rationalize it. There are 4 categories I talk about. They said, it was an enjoyment for me. I was just curious. I was excited about that. I didn't mean anything. I didn't mean to leave my partner. It was just kind of, I was just kind of curious. Don't I have the courage? Don't I have the right to do that? Curiosity. Again, they will rationalize in all kinds of ways. Other people would go into emotional dimension. For me, it was all about intellectual sharing. I could not talk to my partner, my husband, my wife. They didn't have the patience. They didn't have the tolerance for these kind of things. So I got into this relationship with this person at workplace. Intellectual sharing. He understands me or she understands me. It's about companionship, not sexual. We eat meals together. We eat lunch together. Those kind of things they tell you. Or they would even say, I was in a very crummy marriage, difficult marriage. When I talk to this person, I feel confident. My self-esteem gets enhanced or deepened. So emotional dimension, they talk about justification. The third one is about extrinsic motivation dimension, career advancement. I had to sleep with my boss, or I had to sleep with my partner, or I had to sleep with whoever it is. Again, they all kinds of things. Or I have to, I was so mad at my husband, he did X, Y, Z, and I'm getting even with him or her at this point. This is the way I'm going to punish them. So extrinsic motivation. Or even the love dimension. They get in love, getting love and affection from the other person, falling in love. My partner, I'm married to my partner for 17 years, 17 freaking years, they say. I'm done with it. I don't have the courage to get out of this relationship for now. If I leave, my kids will be, a lot of things would happen to my family. So this is kind of, this meets my love need. We are not sexually involved in that sense directly. So again, usually I find out about this not in the couple therapy sessions, in the individual sessions with a couple. Sometimes I kind of bring people together, and sometimes I separate them for the screening processes in the first few. Next one, Jen, please. So now we're talking about, I'm going to end it soon in the sense that it's a healing process. What involves healing related to infidelity? The most critical factor for us is kind of disclosure. Disclosure is crucial for healing process. Sometimes people do it in a piecemeal way, like in a step-by-step. I talk little today, little tomorrow, there tomorrow. Those usually, in some cases, don't work well. Again, we have to know the couple, what sort of couples. Like how much should be disclosed in the relationship? How many details should I give? Oh yeah. Sometimes couple members would ask, tell me, Tom, what happened? What did you do? Oh, well, Kathy, this is what happened. I went there. And then we didn't mean much at all. We were having dinner together. Tell me more about what happened to the dinner. Then, we had a glass of, they go into the, then what happened? Then we thought we'd just go and chat in the room. They were traveling together in the partner, the workers. Then, tell me more. You're not on. This kind of, sometimes partners may insist on the details. That also is kind of problematic. So again, that's why the therapist has to be really, really kind of facilitate that kind of conversation in a very careful way. So we cannot really talk about those factors. How much should we? So it depends on the culture. Depends on the couple member and their need for that factor. The disclosure. So the disclosure is extremely crucial for healing process. When it happens, they have to come clean. Next, please, Jen. Then you can move to the next. Yeah, sorry. So there are, some of the Olson and team is kind of I respect these people in big ways. This is kind of, as couple therapists, we should be mindful of this kind of healing process. Three stages. The stages could vary for cultural context and couple context. So what I have seen, I agree with Olson on this one. I said there are three things that happen in the process of healing. There's a roller coaster stage, moratorium stage, and trust building stage. What is roller coaster? When the news comes out, when they are in therapy, the initial phase of therapy, there's a strong feelings oscillate. Strong feelings go back and forth. It's kind of oscillation. Anger, ambiguity, self-blame. Maybe another person begins to say, no, I should have been more available to Tom at that point. Or introspection. What did I do wrong? Awareness, personal awareness. Deepened appreciation for the partner who violated me. Again, Tom was, in spite of Tom still is a great dad. Tom is still a great family man. He still supports. So they oscillate. There's also a desire to work on marital relations. Sometimes people would say in the initial stages have said, well, I want to work on this relationship. In some cases they say, not some cases, the same case would say, I want to give up this relationship. This is crazy. It doesn't make any. One of the women told me that it was like a punch in the stomach when I learned this Tom's relationship with XYZ. And even gratefulness for that something. Some people, not some people, the same person would say, I'm grateful that it happened because now we can really pay attention. I can open my eyes. I was so busy with my work and my job and my responsibilities. So now this gives me an opportunity to pay attention. It caught my eye. So the point of the roller coaster is people go back and forth. They swing mad and appreciative, sad, and all those things they oscillate. So as clinicians, we have to be aware of this kind of oscillation. This oscillation is the part of the process. Don't get stuck with one side of the oscillation. It happens, swing to the other end also. Within the same session, you will find it. This kind of first stage may continue a couple of sessions actually. Then as they begin to put all this kind of thing out, then they move into the moratorium stage, we call it. The occasional flare-ups happen. They are getting settled, but again, there is less emotional reactivity. The first stage is over in some ways, but still every now and then, how could you do that, Tom? 2 years into this, and all those memories will come back. And in the third stage, we'll talk about trust building stage, taking responsibility. I'll talk more about that in the next few slides, like how each partner takes responsibility. They try to understand the meaning and what happened. What costed contributing factors. So they reassure, they recommit themselves to the relationship. There is better or increased communication between both partners. They're like chickens without heads, like running around, like moving around. But now they are I see it in some cases now, COVID time. People are home. They're spending a lot of time at home. There's a lot of conversations that go on. There's a lot of bonding. Dr. Eon that you met earlier, he and I are doing a research project on some of these kind of things already. And how people's, sense of connection and meaning and purpose and all those kind of shifting during those COVID time. And also in the trust building stage, there's a forgiveness. Forgiveness is not simple, right? Forgiveness means acknowledging. Forgiveness is not just minimizing what happened to why the person or the perpetrator, minimizing or reducing the impact or just justifying him. Forgiveness is not that. I'm using forgiveness in a much more complex way. Forgiveness means that acknowledging that there has been a violation. He violated me. At the same time, consciously and deliberately making the decision to move forward from that place of violation. So what happens in forgiveness often is, forgiveness is a topic in itself. Psychology of forgiveness is an interesting factor for me. Forgiveness means, people are locked up in the past. Something happened in the past. A violation happened in the past. And then, they don't move from there. They don't move forward from there. So again, forgiveness involves 2 steps for me at least. acknowledging that the violation has happened in its entirety. That kind of, you have to bring it out in some ways. And then it may give the person the capacity in a therapeutic way to move from that locked place in the past. And then trust building also means re-engaging, opening up and focusing on problems leading up to the infidelity factors. There are many reasons for that stuff. Again, so think about these. I would like you to talk about, ask me questions or your sharing experience about this. I'm going to move forward again because of the time factor. Let's spend time after I finish a couple more slides. Okay, next one, Jen, please. There are positive outcomes of infidelity. Sometimes couple members, interesting, positive and negative outcomes. Sometimes people say there's increased assertiveness. I didn't have any power in this relationship. Once Tom did this, now I have my voice back. I can tolerate what happened in the past, yes. So people think I got my assertive, I found my voice back. There's a closer marital relationship in some cases. They place higher value on the family, the work and all those things, the crazy stuff, high stress stuff that happened outside. They give up all that stuff and they kind of settle more with the family. They're choosing their profession well, choosing their engagement with the professional community differently, taking better care of self. Because often people get into infidelity not because of sexual dissatisfaction. There are other factors, soothing reasons, and all so many reasons. You, as a clinician, you want to know about them. And realizing the importance of good marital communication, how they communicate with each other, because often people get into those kind of relations because of emotional needs and stuff. What are the negative consequences? Betrayed partners rage. Sometimes homicides happen during this time. People kill each other. There's a loss of trust. Once the trust is lost, it's gone for some people, never coming back. Or decreased personal and sexual confidence anymore with any person. Or damaged self-esteem. They blame the self. For partners' infidelity, they blame self. I was not good enough. I'm not good enough. So again, if they take it, they hit it. So these are clinical treasure troves for us. There's a lot of work that can be done here. Fear of abandonment. Kind of my partner abandoned me and if I get into a new relationship, I will be abandoned. So again, there's the trust, those we talked about attachments yesterday. I know that gets activated or that gets damaged. Attachment injuries are crucial here. Or surge of justification to leave the spouse in some cases. They said, oh, yeah, I was waiting for this. Now this is the last blow. I'm done with it. I knew this, and now I have a good reason to get out of this. So people find that, this is giving me clarity. No more work on this. So again, partners may be in both places, that oscillation thing that I talked about. There may be positive outcomes they talk about and also negative outcomes. In some cases, it's kind of categorically positive. I'm staying in the relationship, but I'm going to be more assertive. I'm finding my voice back. In some cases, I'm done with it. This is done, clean. Next one, please, Jen. I promise that I'll finish in the next few. So aftermath of infidelity, we need to identify risk factors. So again, it's kind of, what were the risk factors? What really prompted the situation? So couple therapy will help these people to identify what is happening. How did I have that blind side on this one? Both the partners would look into that. Partner who committed infidelity and partner who was a victim of infidelity or then they foolproof, like affair proofing. They put protocols about that. Self-containment in some ways. I'm not going to let you travel with your coworkers anymore, especially that coworker. I'm not going to let you spend that kind of your business meetings or whatever meeting that you call it. I want you to be home. So again, if you want to be kind of all those kind of, they identify risk factors and they create affair proofing of the relationship. So the no more affair can happen. Reminding the couples on the need for support. They cannot do it. Sometimes people think that I can manage it, I can live with it, I can. No. When it comes to infidelity, from my own clinical and from the research indications that person cannot do it by self. A lot of support is needed, a lot of conversations, a lot of therapy, of course. The person needs support in that kind of processing information and all those fears and stuff, in the inner stuff. And reminding couples on the need to go slow and allow time for the relationship to heal. Sometimes people say, I'm okay, I'm over it. No, you're not over it. It will haunt you for the next couple of years. there are flare-ups coming back. So it takes time, allow time for the relationship to heal, and also focus on forgiveness. Forgiveness is not just as a psychological reality, but also spiritual reality. I find it helpful. In most of the cases that especially in certain samples, I've found it extremely useful and helpful. I think that's it. Jen, can you move? I think that's it for now, right? Yeah, that's it. Okay, so we can close back again. So I threw a lot of stuff onto you. This is, this is not a simple topic, as I said. I just want to hear your thoughts, your questions, and your experiences related to working with this kind of couples. I think it's not a question, right? It's a comment, or the kid is saying something. Okay. So yeah, what are you thinking about the issue of infidelity in current Indian reality, Indian context?
This is Akila.
Yes,
I've come across a case where a person was married, and then he got married to another lady, divorced the first wife, and then after that, when he was married to this current lady who was pregnant, he had an affair with his boss. So some people they seem to have a tendency to get involved. So is it something with their upbringing, or is it what sets this off? Any particular reason?
Yeah, I had a case just like that, Akila. That's kind of an interesting thing. There are many factors, of course. The factors that I experienced in that particular case, what I'm saying is there's a lot of complexity in this case, right? So in this case, he was like, they were a happily married couple, and she was pregnant in this case. And then, so what happened with pregnancy was, it was the first pregnancy for her. I'm talking about my case without mentioning any name.
Okay.
She began to have this kind of special relationship with this good child growing within her womb. She would spend time, like a lot of, all those kind of, she's really, that's what happens with maternal, of course, most of your women, especially mothers, what it means. Like, so I'm just as a man. So what happened was, he thought he lost her. So she kind of, again, her body, her child, her growing child, and her preparation for the maternity and all those kind of stuff. In the course of time, he began to he said he felt that he was being kind of kicked out of the system. The child was born. She would spend more time with the kid, holding the kid. He would go to cuddle the baby. She would say, no, that's not the way you hold the kid. You have to do this again. Reprimanding and all those kind of rejections. So he would say he had history of at least a couple of years, pregnancy and after pregnancy, the childbirth, that's to continue. He felt that he lost his partner, he lost his spouse, he lost his best friend. They could not talk to each other anymore. They couldn't have time because she was always busy with the kids. Kids matter, this matter, this matter. So the whole couple relationship shifted to parenting relationship in some ways. And then, in the result, he had a lot of needs. So he began to, the co-worker was his secretary, unfortunately, in this case. He was the boss. And he would share with, so the secretary would ask him, hey, what happened, Tom? I mean, using the common term, Tom. What happened, Tom? Why are you seem like sad? You should be excited about your son and all. Well, things happen. So they began to start sharing. And the sharing began to be extending, in my case, into the dinners, coffees and dinners, because they could not talk about it in the workspace. So that moved into more sharing, that like talk about the third stage, first the emotional connection, then the sexual activities, and then full-blown kind of infidelity. So when Kathy was shocked. Again, Kathy is the name I'm using. Kathy was shocked. Tom, how could you do that? I'm committed to you. This is a baby needed attention. So again, so both the parties came together, and then we had to identify, again, after those three phases that I talked about, we had to go. So the point of the whole story, Akila, is that there are many, it does happen for many reasons. As I said, it's more the partner lost a friend, A spouse was not his friend anymore. She was busy with the baby, and it happens, people. It happens in parenting stage. Many times, couple members lose themselves. They feel that they are rejected in the system. Children are more important. Parenting matters are more important, not the couple matters. Yes.
In this case, she was still pregnant when she got to know he was having an affair. And then the thing is, he had a very unstable childhood himself. I think his father had an affair. So I was wondering if because of that, he kept doing this, because he was already divorced once, then he got married again, and then he had an affair again. So he was doing the same pattern. So I was wondering, is it got to do with his dad also having affair and the instability?
Could be. I do not know for sure, because I don't know this case other than what you just described. I think my sense is that to answer your question, yes, Akila, there are patterns, intergenerational patterns. If it is normalized in the family of origin, that pattern may get replicated because it doesn't get challenged unless there is something happen for the person. So again, those patterns are definitely, so absolutely, Akila, I would definitely, if I work with such couples, I would definitely pay attention to the family of origin. There are patterns, you know from your own experience, I'm sure, and your clinical training, there are patterns repeated or replicated over intergenerationally, and these patterns are not accepted. Oh, well, I like that pattern, let me do this. No, these are often unconscious processes for people, right? So these patterns get replicated or repeated over generations. That's why therapy comes in to break those patterns. So maybe for him or her, if they're still intending to stay together, it could be a great opportunity for them to process it. In some cases, people, it sounds like he had an affair and he got divorced and he got into another relationship and got another affair. So sometimes these patterns get replicated, and that is for good reasons for them. Again, it's a very complicated process, but that's why every case is very different, unique in that sense. Akila, I would definitely be curious about those patterns.
In this case, he didn't want to change or do any change, so it didn't quite work out. They split.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's right. That happens in many of the marriages, right? They refuse to be part of the sessions. And then what do you do? I think one of the questions, I don't know, somebody asked me that question yesterday, that, what do you do then? Well, I don't know what to do, because I cannot tell you what you should do in your relationship. Those are the important conversations. Those are therapeutic conversations, right? Why people are reluctant to dig deep into, because marriage is such a deeper, it's not just physicality, it's not just emotionality, it's a spiritual dimension. There are many nuances within it. It's much more intricate and complex and layered and nuanced kind of venture. So sometimes people don't want to go there because of the attachment reasons, because it's too scary to go there. That's why marriage is not for everyone, right? It's for the brave heart, I would say. Anybody can make babies. That's no big deal. I mean, people are pretty good with that. Making babies doesn't equate with the capacity to be married. No, that's only for so that's why people I'll talk about those kind of things in the next sessions. Not for all. This is like a big game. That's why sometimes families make huge mistakes, right? Like, they don't see these kind of intricacies. The older generation enforce or impose these kind of things, and then force the children to get married. But again, I think that's why in some of the faith-based movements, they're educating the family, not the couple encounters, couple marriage, couple preparation. But again, family preparation needs to be. Otherwise, it can really mess up situations, many times, especially in a family where people cannot talk to each other about things.
True.
And, sir, this is Deepa here.
Yes, Deepa.
Sir, like when you explained about, different justifications, people give for indulging in infidelity, I think one of the reason, sir, one of the reaction is also, where the partner tends to be defensive.
Mm-hmm.
And they do not they're not ready for any discussions further, nor give any sort of explanation, but they tend to be defensive. Now, this is not exactly as a clinical case that I have got, sir, but an informal discussion when we have it with our friends or acquaintances. I just came across where the partner found out it was an sexual infidelity that twice that happened, and it was a major kind of an emotional injury that the other partner experienced. But later everything they just went to the church and did all these formalities. But today the couple are together, but there is no relation at all, sir, between them. There's no, maybe neither a physical relationship or an emotional bonding. Both do not exist at all. They're just together for the sake of the children. So that defensiveness from one side of the partner also may not help to progress further.
Yeah, you're right. There are two pieces here. One is defensiveness of the partner, not disclosing or providing that what's needed, or to look at the real reality. Defensiveness stops me from engaging into this kind of processes, therapeutic processes, whatever. That's one factor. The second, more dangerous one for me personally, again, I'm talking as a clinician. I'm a Catholic personally myself. I'm a very devout Catholic. Sometimes religion also can mess up the realities in some ways. I'm very cautious in saying that, because I think not every religious, I know some great priests and nuns and great clinicians who are really encourage people. Of course, in this case that you're talking about is that, they went to church and did some formality, done some kind of forgiveness maybe. They think that, probably, I don't know what they think, but I'm just assuming that people think that, usually people think that, oh yeah, we forgave each other in front of God or whatever they did at the time. That takes care of it. That's only one part. It doesn't mean, that's a beginning stage. It doesn't mean that deeper hurt factors, they cannot let it go like that. If you leave them unattended, all these things will become, as you said, emotional coldness, detachment. They stay for the children. They're not connected to each other. They're like ships in the night. They pass by, in other words. So the point I'm trying to make is, yes, disclosure is important. Defensiveness is part of the game. You can break through the defenses if they are willing to work in the therapeutic processes. I don't know what exactly stopping that particular acquaintance of yours to pursuing that. And then spirituality can be a problem. It could be a band-aid solution, not the real solution. You have to take the pus out. You cannot just put a band-aid over it and hoping that it will go away. So religion and spirituality as amazingly helpful facilitating factors, especially to unleash the power of forgiveness and all those things. At the same time, they can also become stumbling block. I have seen it time and again, how religion can be destructive. I'm not saying that religion as a whole, certain interpretations of that can be problematic. It stops people from getting deeper into the complexities, because that has to be gutted out, taken out, and not the religion, but again, the processes, the pus, all those things are still sitting there. That has to be addressed. That's what happens in therapy, right? That's what we do, couple therapists. They come to us in a safe place. We take them to place. We hard process. Therapy is not easy. It's not just hunky-dory kind of stuff. It's kind of very difficult, personal journey into knowing self with the grace part and also problems, knowing that I have issues to work on. Those are, especially in marriage relationships, those are extremely important. Actually, I think you are bringing that great point well, actually. So spiritual factor just in a superficial level may do more damage. Damage in the sense that, can you imagine living in a household, children staying in that household? I'm not talking about your particular case, the cases that I have seen. They're staying together for the sake of children. Children see parents not even talking to each other, not even communicating to each other. They're witnessing this reality every day. There is totally disengaged partners. What sort of message does it give to the children about relationships? That does more damage. So that's why I think they owe it to children to do the therapeutic work, to get into the nuts and bolts and the guts and all those realities. It has to be gutted out and then keep it clean. Otherwise, it's a shallow game, and it does more damage to the children than otherwise. I can tell you I have been in the field for a while. many, many heart-wrenching stories, especially when I deal with children of divorce. They come to me as adults now. They say, my God, I never want to be in a relationship because what I've seen in my family is terrible. And I don't want to go through that mess in my life. I would rather stay single. Again, you're talking about a new generation which are coming out in the sense that, they are bringing all this thing that I don't want to be in this relationship or any relationship for the matter. Where does it come from? Family of origin, because my parents were like that. I've seen it 10 years, 15 years. I'm done with it. I have no affinity for marriage. The institution of marriage is crazy, they would say. It's problematic, actually. Right? I mean, I don't know your thoughts about this.
Sir?
Sure. Aisha, yeah.
Are those type of marriages, are those the ones that you would term empty shell marriages?
Absolutely. I mean, what is the purpose of marriage? People, I know that, again, they got into this, I don't know, again, you have to, sometimes people would be happy with that. I'm okay, this is an arrangement. We came together to make some babies and then pass the wealth on to the people would say those stupid things. And in the meantime, they'll meet their needs outside, the relationship. So empty shell. Oh yeah, absolutely. So some couple may be fine with that. But again, those couples don't come into infidelity business usually. Those who come into, therapy session because of the infidelity are often had some investment at some point. They may have changed or they may want to work on it. Yeah. So I think the point is, Aisha, is always go deeper and deeper and deeper. Find out about what impact to the individual member. When I talk about addiction also, okay. That's a great question, of course, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looks like, and I think we can stay on this topic, addiction. Maybe I'll take it tomorrow or something again. So give me more sense of what is your experience, Indian reality related to addiction. Sorry, related to affairs, infidelity. What have you seen? What are the stumbling blocks? What is in the way? What are the barriers for you to process, move forward?
May I say something?
Sure, Divya. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, Divya, yeah.
I'm staying in Mumbai. So here, the reason they say is that we don't have time to spend at home because they are just traveling and at office for most of the time. So the co-workers are the ones with whom they spend a lot of time. And so the time they spend at home is very less. And in that time, they are focused on the children or housework. And they say that we don't have a connect now. We as husband-wife are not husband-wife, we are just parents. And and so what happens is that here job is a very important thing. So changing that or changing, as you said, some changes has to be brought when you are healing. You cannot meet this co-worker or something. That becomes a hurdle here. For example, if you are in a government job, how do you not go to the same office? You have to be in the same office with that same person. So how do we deal with that? How do we say, okay, don't have that relationship? You cannot go to the same place or something like that.
Yeah. A great point. You're bringing great reality. And there are some ways that we can work around it, even in spite of all that. We call it containment. We call it containment in the sense that interaction with that particular person. I was aware of a case, a person who was working in the railways for many years, and she was developing an affair, and that she was having an affair with somebody in the office. She wanted to give up, but he was pursuing it. And then he began to threaten her to complete. Again, the process continues. So the containment, we call it containment, safe containment, meaning say, minimize or reduce interaction with that person if you're really invested into that, or get the resources from the community. Again, you can talk about different harassment complaints and different things. Again, there are many laws now in Indian context. So I would say if the person is willing to work on, even staying in the same professional context or the work setting, they can still do something. They're not totally helpless. We live in a different world. Again, that depends on, maybe sometimes person may be believing, the perception is that I'm helpless. Again, that's also a clinical factor that you have to work through, right? So I would say, you're right. I mean, the other point, Divya, you talked about is like, people are exhausted. Can you imagine living in Worli or Virar and taking a train to metro? It takes about an hour and a half one way, and then there's kind of push and pull around and the stress and craziness. Then go to work, stressful place, come back, tired, exhausted. There's no help at home. I have to help with cooking, cleaning, putting the kids to sleep, and all this kind of, what a mess. Where do you have time to be coupled there? There's no way. The work life has taken over. I think COVID is a blessing to me, to the world, I think, in sense, because people are locked up in their homes. People can work, but again, depending on what kind of boundaries we use and all, I think there's a great time to reconnect. That's what Dr. Eon and I'm studying, Dr. Eon in this group. Hey, buddy. So, we are studying this process, how it is shifting, how it is not just a negative, but it's a positive, how people become more self-reflective, how thoughtful, how caring, how they get involved in the family life, how they, allocating or carving out time for the couple time. All those things are, like, for example, my wife, we go for walks together, we go to, different things, kids are busy with it, like, just around the house itself. That's kind of huge. So it's a great time. I think COVID-19 is a blessing in that. Globally, we are on a reboot mode, reset mode. We are looking at our relationships in all kinds of ways globally. Another factor I want to talk about is about pay attention to the infidelity. This infidelity has certain patterns. I'll tell you an example, quick example. Husband would come and tell me, or wife would come and tell me, would tell the partner, hey, honey, what happened? I met a great guy at the workplace. She's saying to me, I met a great guy. He's so great and wonderful, so young and talented. Great. We work together. She's innocently sharing what she experienced in the work setting. As they get closer, coffee time, tea times, lunch time, dinner time, longer time, travel time together and all, as the relationship gets deepened in the world outside, the sharing about that person goes off the grid. They don't. So then they say, hey, you talked to me a couple of weeks ago about that guy, Atul, that you met. I don't know. I hope there is no Atul in the group. Or Tom that you met outside. How is he doing? Oh, well, he's okay. And then she wants to change the topic right there. So again, I'm talking about you see patterns. When infidelity affairs flourish outside, the description or the narrative about the person goes off, silent, and the mood changes happens. The time spent. I have to stay for late hours because we are you're working on a project. We have to finish that deadline. There's a launching happens tomorrow, or whatever. All sort of excuses. Again, the innocent partner believes that, oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, maybe he'll be working so hard. I have to support him. He's coming back late. Guess what? He had his stuff there already, and then she begins to smell the perfume and whatever. Again, the story, right? This is very common, people. This is very common. So the narratives outside, about the outside world, gets shortened or edited here. Does it make any sense? Does it, for you people? I'm talking about clinical context. If you look into the history, interesting patterns. Infidelity is a big deal. I mean, it's a kind of fun thing it's a painful thing for the person who go through it. As a researcher, for me, it's a fun thing to understand. Oh my God, this is so nuanced. Again, I should not say that, but it's very rich and deep. Notions are very interesting.
So
let's take a couple more questions. Yeah.
So what about a person who doesn't want to leave his wife, neither the person he's having an affair with? Then what do we do? How do we counsel that?
Yeah. Well, stalemate. We call it stalemate. I think that's why therapy is not about what we tell them, right? Therapy is about what they want to do with that. They're on a stalemate situation. As therapists, we cannot do much about it. That if they don't want to leave, what we can do is we can look into why they're afraid. What is in the way? What are they? So they talk about social exchange factors. What are the costs and stuff? All those things could be part of the conversation. So, what I would say is, as we engage people individually through individual therapy on these matters, as we engage people through this process, they shift in their thinking. They be much more aware of what they can do and what they cannot do. So therapy is extremely important in that case. Therapy is like, you are taking the person on a journey. As object couple therapists would say, object relations couple therapists would say, you kind of create the context, a container for the person to self-talk And that self-talk itself, the person will find the answers within what to do with it. That's your option. I mean, she can live with the relationship for the next 30 years, or she can get out, or she can put a moratorium on it, or like all kinds of things that we can, there's a lot of options. Nobody's helpless in that system. That's what I'm trying to say to you. People, one of the cases, husband refused to go for therapy. She said, if you don't come for therapy, there are two options. I'm going to talk about it to people outside, to your father, to your mother, to your brother, to your boss, to all those people. And then he didn't want to take that kind of risk at all. Then so people, you have sometimes so-called helpless people have a lot of power within the system. They can maneuver, they can do a lot of stuff. So that's why therapy can empower that person to even speak up that way. Therapy can do wonders. That's what I'm trying to say to you. There are a lot of mind kind of things can change. Thinking patterns can change because of therapeutic processes.
Hi.
Yeah.
I was actually wondering, if I observe my parents, their couple relationship, and the family relatives and the couple relationship among them, I see that the parental role takes a lot their time, and they don't invest in the couple relation. So I was thinking on the lines, the parental role becomes the infidelity for the couple, because they have this notion the parent needs to be perfect, and that's how we have been brought up. Even the idea that the couple needs their personal time, it's just not acceptable in the Indian context. That's what I have seen, and even when I talk about it, when it comes to my mate selection process, it's just shunned away. Like, no, you cannot think in that manner. You need to give importance to other stuff and not the couple relation that much.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Again, you're bringing another interesting point, Isha, as before, that reality. Sometimes certain systems, they kind of, although the system, if you think about it structurally, the executive, parental, couple, and all those things, some systems, some subsystems die. People become just parents themselves. In the meantime, the other parts dies. Again, we know from the research, these are the clinical realities, right? When the couple subsystem dies, when they don't do much about it, parental subsystem also dies. Sibling subsystem begins to manifest symptomatology. The parents are not even talking to each other in that sense. They are busy parenting, giving us what we need, all those kind of things. But again, that affects, because we cannot compartmentalize these things, right? One part of my couple relationship is informing me, enriching me, supporting me in my parental role. In my parenting, kind of informing me and enriching me in my couple. So it's always bidirectionality or cyclicality in these processes. So I think that is something I would say culturally, I think as a group, as a country, probably we may need to revisit some of those things. I think good news is that people are getting much more educated to look into mental health issues, and like you are clinicians, you can bring a lot of change in those kind of mindset in some ways. Because traditionally, after having a couple of babies, making a couple of babies, let's focus on this job. This is a new promotion to parenting. Let me retire and die, or become a grandparent, take care of the babies of my baby, grandchildren. So they kind of move sequentially from couple to parent, parent to grandparenting, and they die. No. That's a lot of. It's kind of. I think as a culture we have to. I don't know. As a culture we have to revisit. That's why I think you, psychologists, psychiatrists, people, mental health professionals, social workers, counselors, you have a huge role for our society. Your role is extremely critical, and you should be very well paid for the job, because you are setting a new. You're setting the culture in a new way, in much more deeper way, process-oriented way. We are not saying that we should take from the West. No. Forget about the West. For our own sake, we have to do things within our own community and culture. Otherwise, these assumptions and the norms get unquestioned, and then they passed on from generation to generation without even ever being challenged. So I think most of your women, I guess, I think women, your role is extremely important in that sense. voice of reason, voice of thinking, voice of sensitivity about these matters, and having conversations about these with the families and couples.
So we are talking about relationship, physical relationship. I'm talking about relationship, social media, where the people are more, either the spouse or the husband or the wife are more addicted to the social media or internet connections. So how do we deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question again. That's a new addiction that we are coming through, right? New threats to stability of marriages and relationships. In some ways, in terms of, I'm not saying that they are bad. Of course, they are. Without them, you cannot survive. They are extremely useful. They help us connect with the people and the world outside of us. All those things are true. At the same time, when they take over, and take over in such a way that our priorities are, personal relationships at home become a secondary factor rather than the primary factor, then the trouble begins. And I think it's even I have seen it many times. So say go to the restaurants, restaurant. I mean, when COVID times are over, couple members are talking, families are talking. One of the members is on the phone, right? Phone checking out those kind of things. They're blocking, they're interfering with those kind of precious time with the family, with the children, with the family. Those are really problematic. I think, again, that's another topic for you to think about in the clinical context. In the clinical context is a great place you can raise these questions and facilitate conversations about these. People are smart people. When you are asking right questions, when you set the stage in a way, people will talk. You don't have to do all the work as clinicians. I think they will do the work. You can watch it, you can direct it, you can facilitate it. Answers usually come from within themselves. You become facilitators, not just so much people who give answers. You know that already anyway. I'll take the last question for the day. I think it is so sad that I could not even complete. I was thinking about doing 4, but I did 1. So I'll take 1 each. So tomorrow we'll move on with the topic of tomorrow, but I will add addiction piece tomorrow. And then, any last question, people?
Yes, Dr. Seb, can I put in a word?
Sure, Rashmi. Call me Seb. I'm not Doc. Okay, Rashmi.
Okay. I'm on to this disclosure. You said disclosure is crucial. So how important are the details? And should we really stress as therapists, as facilitators, should we really linger on the details, or can we just get them moving on to the present? And I was wondering whether, too much disclosure would come in the way of forgiveness.
Absolutely. You're right. So, disclosure, yes, we should have disclosure, because disclosure is a critical component for the healing process. How much of it depends on the couple members. And sometimes you have to regulate in some way. Sometimes couple members may, as I said, one of the cases, then Tom, what did you do after dinner? Then Tom, what did you do? There's one partner is wanting to know every details of that. So that we have to regulate in some ways. But often that requirement comes from the couple members themselves. They let them decide how much of information. In some cases, too much of details is problematic, because that person can use it later on, saying that, oh, well, what should I trust you now? Because you did it one time, you did that, those. So again, it's like a catch. It's a messed up thing. So you had to be very cautious and thoughtful about it. Assess the need of the couple. Is it relevant for now? If it is relevant, indulge in it for a little bit, but again, don't go all the details. The problem is sometimes we couple therapists, we get excited, right, about these details, and because we want to know what is the process is here. And we have to regulate it ourselves too. So we have to regulate our curiosity there. We become facilitators of their conversation. I think there's a lot of discernment piece, but that's a great question. In some cases, details are debatable, but disclosure is absolutely, emphatically yes. Sometimes people won't talk about that. Then there's no healing process. That's clinical reality. I've studied a lot of meta-analysis about these factors. Again, research after research indicates to us disclosure is critical. The details is debatable, how much, depending on the couple. Let them decide. You facilitate it as a clinician, I would say. Does it make any sense, Rashmi?
Yes, it does. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So one question, just one.
Sure.
What about conversations being taped by either of the spouse?
What is the purpose of the conversation being taped? Is it to use it against that person later? I mean, I'm not asking you that question. I'm saying you may want to ask that question. Yeah, to the partner.
That maybe they will say that find out who is telling the truth or who is telling the lies, and, or trying to find out whether he's having a relationship or she's having a relationship with somebody, and then using that taped conversation for some other purpose.
Again, that's a topic that let the couple decide it. If they're okay with that, they can. If both the parties agree with that, I'll talk about that maybe another day in one of the sessions. Like, both parties have to agree with that. If otherwise, what happens, is that, Rashmi, is that one instance I had heard about it, partners taped, and fast forward 3 years, and now they are going to file for divorce. So divorce requires raw data, some sort of supportive evidence, right? And they were using it as, not in the court of law, but again, they could use it in all kinds of ways. So I would always be curious about these kind of sensitive things. You are intimate couple partners. You are working on your relationship. What would be the role of it being taped? What purpose does it serve? Oh, I just want to know about realities, what we discussed. No. I think they have to set the standards in terms of taping about these kind of intimate disclosures. I would say those are a very important part to think about. It's a very delicate topic, Rashmi, I would say. But if the couple are saying we are fine with taping, then why would you care? I mean, you don't have to worry about it. But you can warn them. It probably may come and bite you somewhere, So this kind of things are, it's very. I think I'm looking at the time, and I think we went a little over. I'm so sorry, people, I didn't complete the session. I hope that this is useful, this kind of conversations, and I hope that keep thinking about it. Complexity. I shared with you my clinical experience and some research about this, and I think it is a very complex topic. It's not simple. Keep that in mind. If you take away that, that's great. Infidelity is a much complex topic. There are many clinical strategies that we can use. I hope it makes sense, right? Is it or no? Just give some feedback about it. You don't have to do it right because of the time, or tell the team of Rosa, Jennifer, and we'll see Dr. the team, and then we will adjust it because I don't know your clinical reality other than what you share with me. All right. Okay, I think Rosa and Jennifer and Wilsey.
Yes, we are here.
Yay. Okay, so tell me, are we done for the day? Any other things that I need to do before we?
I think no. Jennifer, please go ahead.
Okay. No, for the day.
Okay, so it's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yes, we are done for the day, and we shall meet again tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes. So tomorrow we'll talk about this. Again, I will take the topics that I did not do as a second part of tomorrow. Okay, I'll start with. I will do addiction tomorrow. Addiction is another.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, of course. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone. For me, my day is beginning 9:34 in the morning. I had to go to work. So just kidding. Okay, have fun, people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.